Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be hard. Like early 90s heavy metal hard.
I'm yelling and screaming, and I'm loud. Roar.
Geico makes it easy. You can review and update your policy or report a claim on Geico.com or the Geico mobile app. Because shouldn't we all have a little less stress in our lives?
I'm not even upset about anything.
What?
So like, y'all come around here and we told her where we're from. She goes, oh.
All right, and welcome back to the Balance. My name is tom-marquis, El Presidente. I do believe we've got Steve Wilson on the line with us. Steve, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Didn't recognize the number. It looked like a different number, so I wanted to just make sure that I had the right line open. I'm certainly down in Darlington. I know you got a lot going on there. I appreciate you taking some time to jump on and talk a little NASCAR with us. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been able to talk, so bring us up to speed what's going on this weekend. Obviously, you're down in Darlington. Talk with us a little bit about that action. We'll be talking also about the Brickyard coming up next weekend.
Well, the Cup Series has been off since Bristol a couple of weeks ago. Kind of back at a short track where tire management is going to be an issue this weekend. The hot sun, it's going to be 90-plus degrees during race time, over 100 degrees on the about 130, 140-degree temperature on the track. So these cars are going to be able to slip and slide around, give it a little bit of a short track feel. If you step out a little too far, you're going to get one of those famous Darlington stripes. But this weekend is all about the throwbacks. Everybody in the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series is throwing this back. A lot of cool paint schemes out this weekend that we're going to see on the cars. Some people that are old school race fans are going to recognize. Some new school race fans are probably going to not recognize what they've got on the racetrack this weekend as far as the paint schemes and who they're going. At least to give them a good history lesson this weekend.
Well, absolutely. I always love Throwback Week, especially as you mentioned, old school NASCAR coming back, the SCP cars and all the old cars that are coming back. But the one car I'm sure you won't see is the old Winston car, but that's neither here nor there. Darlington has a rich history with NASCAR. Talk with us a little bit about Darlington, the track. As you mentioned, tire management is going to be one issue. Heat's going to be another issue, but certainly a historical track for NASCAR in Darlington. So talk with us a little bit about Darlington Speedway, the track, and what makes it such a legacy track for NASCAR.
Well, Darlington Raceway, this is its 69th year in existence. It makes it one of the oldest tracks on the circuit, aside from Martinsville, that we go to every year. This track is the first super speedway with 500-mile races. Some of the old races here, there was as many as 60-plus cars that would enter these events back in the 50s. Today, this track, its asphalt is a Carolina sand asphalt, which is a little bit different than what they use at other racetracks around the United States. I already talked about the tire wear, that this track is already going to be an issue this weekend. But the track is an egg-shaped oval out there, and the reason why it's because there's an old minnow pond outside of Turn 4, which the back in the 50s, the landowner wouldn't let them build out, so it's a shorter trip around Turns 3 and 4, which a lot of people will get out there and hang that thing out and run all the way up near the wall. Kyle Larson and some of these other drivers that are used to sprint cars, we'll see them run way up against the wall both this weekend throughout the Southern 500.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. I had to switch devices earlier, so I got a little bit of a delay, and I do apologize about that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the personnel on the track. Kurt Busch, we know, is looking at a couple contract offers. Have you heard anything as far as where Kurt Busch might be ending up at, and as far as how his contract negotiations are going?
Well, Kurt Busch, last year, he only signed a 1-year contract with Stewart-Haas Racing, so did Monster Energy as an extension for them. This year, he hasn't really indicated a lot of where he is going to go or what he's going to do. There has been some rumors about Monster Energy is interested in going to Chip Ganassi Racing, so that could potentially put Jamie McMurray as the odd man out if that is true. However, nothing is really confirmed at this point, and if Monster Energy is going to jump ship and going to go somewhere else, they've been tied to Kurt Busch for quite some number of years, and I would expect that wherever Monster Energy goes in their final year as a Cup Series presenting sponsor, Kurt Busch will most likely go along with them. But at this time, it's a lot of rumors as to where he's going to go and as far as where Monster Energy is going to go in their final year. So I think we'll just have to keep watching this over the next couple of weeks or so, because if Jamie McMurray is the odd man out over at Chip Ganassi Racing, there are some other vehicles and some other cars, especially with Casey Kane leaving at the end of the season, where Jamie McMurray himself could go.
Well, we'll see what happens. Another driver I wanted to ask you about, Jimmy Hamilton. I heard that he had some fainting spells there at Darlington. What do we know about that?
You broke out a little bit. I couldn't understand you.
I am so sorry. I said the other driver I wanted to talk with you about, Denny Hamilton. I heard that he had some fainting spells there at Darlington. What do we know about that?
Well, it's very hot down here. It's 90 degrees. We had an issue with this just a couple of weeks ago with another driver, Noah Gregson, who was, at Pocono for the Truck Series event, and he had some issues with heat just a couple of weeks ago. For these drivers this weekend, it's just going to be a very, very hot weekend. This isn't something unusual for Darlington Raceway for it to be so hot down here for drivers to have an issue.
Well, we certainly wish the best for him. Hopefully he stays hydrated. As we look at the races this weekend at Darlington, just real quickly, who do we think is the dark horse, if you will? Who are we watching? What teams do we think is because we're coming up on a championship chase? Talk with us a little bit about the chase itself and how that's shaping up.
Well, we've got a couple drivers already locked in as it is right now. We've got this week and next week at Indy, where they're going to end up at your home track next week as the end of the playoffs. So, the top three, they're already locked in: Truex, Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick right now. I think this weekend is just going to be it's going to be another battle of attrition as to who's going to be able to make it. Last time out at Bristol, both Truex and Kyle Busch had a lot of problems out there, although it doesn't really stop their championship run this year. This weekend, Kyle Larson, I think, is a good driver that you need to continue to watch, because he's one of these drivers that can run that very, very high line. Casey Kane is another driver that I think will impress. He may not win the race right now, but Kevin Harvick, I think he has won here before in the Southern 500 about 4 years ago, and he's been pretty fast. Some of the other fours, Blaney has been pretty fast this weekend, so I would look for them, as well as Martin Truex Jr., who just won here 2 years ago. That for them is somebody else we have to watch. So there's quite the crowd up front, as there normally is on a weekend with Kevin Harvick's and with the Martin Truex Jr.'s, Ryan Blaney, and some of these other drivers. But don't count out, like I said, Kyle Larson, somebody that can run that high line.
Real quickly, let's talk a little bit about IndyCar. This is our college football show, so we were only able to kind of squeeze in racing here with you. IndyCar up in Portland, but certainly one of the things that we hadn't really had a chance to talk about with Schmidt Motorsports, and that is Robert Wickens and his horrific crash. What do we know about Robert Wickens? How's his recovery coming? What do we know?
Well, he's undergone some different procedures. He had a compression in the lower portion of his spine. That's pretty indicative of a crash like that with a compression of the spine. He's right now under recovery from those. He's been moved from Lehigh Valley Hospital to a treating facility that will rehab him. He will not be back this season at all. We're looking at 2019 before he comes back for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. For them, that's a good thing. We've seen this in NASCAR that, these drivers need a considerable amount of time after these compression-type fractures. We saw this with Eric Almirola 2 years ago, or last year, with him at Kansas. Same type of incident, same type of compact with compression fractures that took a good 4 to 5 months before they were able to re-enter the car. So for him, he's got a long ways until the IndyCar season starts way back next spring, and I think the longer he can stay out of these cars, the better it is for those compression fractures in his spine and to get that rehabilitation.
Absolutely. What a horrific crash it was. And I am so glad that, I'm not glad that he's out of the season. I'm glad that he's alive, but I'm glad that he's able to, there is the opportunity that he's going to be able to come back. I know there was rumors that he might be paralyzed. There was rumors, a lot of things that he would never race again. So certainly things are starting to look brighter for Robert Wickens, and we wish him the best. Certainly that we look at drivers who are looking for a ride. And I want to kind of go two angles at this. I want to be sensitive about it, but I also want to point out the ridiculousness of this. And what I'm speaking of is Connor Daly and Eli Lilly pulling their sponsorship from Connor Daly. And then also Connor Daly was one of those drivers, helmets in bag in hand at the track for IndyCar as well. We know what happened with Connor Daly. And for those that don't know, this all got circulated with the Indianapolis Colts broadcaster who repeated a story that Connor Daly's father said several years ago, 20, 30 years ago, in one of his first interviews in America. In fact, Robin Miller said, you cannot use that word here, so I'm not going to use the word, but I'm just going to say microphone. In the interview, Derek Daly, Connor Daly's father, said the question was proposed to him, and I'm taking this from the accounts from Derek Daly. I listened to his interview here on local radio quite intensely. He said the question that was proposed to him, what's it like to be in America? What's it like to be on an American team? A phrase that is very common in Europe, even yet today, means something completely different here than it does there. He did not realize he was saying anything bad. So what he said is, I feel like the microphone in the woodpile. Substitute microphone for the N-word, which was never meant to be a racist comment. Bob Lamey, Indianapolis Colts announcer, recounted that story. And a person, African-American person, young intern producer, overheard Bob Lamey telling the story. Like I just said to you, Bob Lamey was forced into retirement. Derek Daly was fired. Now the sponsorships for Connor Daly are being pulled. So Connor Daly is being punished for something that happened 30 years ago before he was ever born. This is ridiculous beyond ridiculous. That's my hot take. What are your thoughts, sir?
I've kind of always said in these situations like this that it's kind of hard to judge somebody in 2018 standards when something was said 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, which was a completely separate set of standards during that time. Yes, there's some things that are, between, Europe and the United States that are much different in our cultural differences as far as that's concerned. It's abnormal that anybody would use those types of language or those types of words. But, for Connor Daly's dad, who was coming to America 30 or 40 years ago, it's kind of hard to judge somebody's father and hold the child accountable for something that they did before they were even born. And especially it's hard to judge somebody on 2018 standards for something that happened 30 or 40 years ago, regardless sometimes of the action. Sometimes it's hard to make the comparisons because we're a different culture today than we were 30 or 40 years ago when these things were coming out. We've changed a lot, and we've grown from these things over the years. And I think for them to pull Connor Daly's sponsorship